Uh-huh.
I was going to ask you, what did you think about the Green Lantern stuff?
What, today's news?
Yeah. What about Hal? What do you think? You want to tell everybody?
Yeah. I think that well, for the uninitiated, apparently the role of Hal Jordan for the Lantern series has been offered to Josh Brolin. Uh, I'm gonna keep it a stack. Not a fan. Not a fan of that. Much as I like Josh Brolin, but Hal Jordan, no.
He's not Hal Jordan. It doesn't make sense, does it? Like it really doesn't make sense.
Mhm. No, when you think of Josh Brolin, much as I've always liked him, and much as I've liked him in pretty much everything that I've seen him in, and for all I know, if this does come to fruition, perhaps I'd be wrong and he'd surprise me. But I kind of get more of that kind of like gruff, grizzled vibe from him, especially in recent years. Um, but especially at his age, the guy's 56 years old,
56
if
years
I'm not
old.
mistaken. So I guess they're going more of like mentor trainee between him and John Stewart, who would presumably be younger. Um, but there's other actors. I think he's played enough comic book characters. Obviously he's played Thanos. He's played Cable. I know no one likes to be reminded of this, but he was Jonah Hex. I think, to be fair, everyone forgot about that movie at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, but he's been how many times will you continue to do that? I don't know. And
Mhm.
and Mama Bear says it's rumored or confirmed. It was offered.
It
That's
was
what
it was. They say it was reported to be offered. I'm kind of, when it comes to DC news, since James Gunn has been so good about confirming or debunking, I'm kind of waiting to see if he confirms or debunks. He's pretty good about that. But I don't know. I prefer. It does say a lot about like maybe what direction they're taking for who's going to be the primary Lantern in this universe. Especially at say we get 56-year-old Josh Brolin, and then like a
in the 10
30
years.
something, yeah, 30 something playing John Stewart.
Derpy, what's up, Derp? He says RDJ is 59. So what's the problem? What's the difference? Because it's DC? No, because DC's just starting.
Yeah, DC's just getting off the ground, and
Hal
Robert
Jordan's going
Downey
to be
Jr.
huge. Hal Jordan is going to be so important, right? If you love Green Lantern or Green Lantern Corps or any of that like
Mhm,
that, and the way that he works off John Stewart,
mhm.
the breaking
Yeah,
like it doesn't make any sense for him to be that age. If you're planning a future, you would think that you would have someone who's at the late maybe 48. At least because in 10 years you can still continue to play that character.
yeah,
Yeah. At
and
56, 66 might be a problem.
yeah, and with Downey, kind of pictured Doom to be on the older side anyway. So,
Well, you have to be.
and he's
You see what we got with Mr. Fantastic, right? Reed
with
Richards.
Mr. Fantastic, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, but yeah, Josh Brolin, even if they went for an older guy, him as hell, you know,
It's a little grizzly. He's a little bit more of
yeah,
veteran, the worn a little bit. So
mm,
I guess if James Gunn is planning on him always being there and he's going to jump right into the story and don't plan on having a
mm,
long history, then it might work. But that's because I
mm,
said about Robert Downey Jr. He's only going to be in the MCU for next 3 years.
yeah,
They're going to
it's not
rebuild.
gonna, yeah, it's not gonna be like over the course of 10 years, like when he was first cast, when he had a lot more longevity, um, on his side. Um, yeah, I'm struggling to picture
It just
it,
doesn't
with
make sense.
yeah, and that's coming from someone who loves Josh Brolin. Like, I think he's a really good actor.
Me too. I think he's a
Uh,
great actor. I just don't think it fits. It doesn't fit.
yeah, yeah, because I don't really look at Hal Jordan, reading the comics and think of him as a like that like a Hal Jordan who's seasoned and has been doing this for years is one thing, but I never bought Hal Jordan as kind of like that grizzled kind of like gruff type character. He definitely is no nonsense and can be no nonsense, but I don't know. Like I think Josh Brolin's just kind of got that natural like grizzled, like hardened, almost kind of stony, like dare I say, like kind of cowboy esque vibe
Mm-hmm.
to him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm using the wrong words,
No, but I think everything
but
you're saying makes perfect sense.
mhm.
All right, let's run
But
through these. Tony says, Brian, I agree. We have so many dope black heroes that we're not using. And that goes right into the John Stewart, and everyone loves John Stewart, but I know what Chill
mm,
always says about him. He said, see if I can find that. So there are few black spots. It's a disaster to waste this high profile spot on a character who doesn't won't valid on a run. And what it's really saying is that it could go to a black character who's actually the face of this franchise, and he's trying to say that John Stewart is not the face of the Green Lantern Corps. He talks about this a lot, and this is something that I
mm,
want to give you guys context. Tank does not agree. Tank does not agree. I hear what he's going with. Um, but because they actually did a video together. I thought that was really really interesting. So if you guys get a chance to check out Chill's video with Tank
mm,
guest starring, they did a really cool reaction and talked about this stuff. And but I understand what he's saying. You want to have someone who's going to be the face of the franchise that could carry it. That's why we talked about Icon, we talked about Steel, we talked about Static, we talked about Black
mm,
Lightning, we talked about all these characters that are, when you say them, there's only one. Yeah, so that's kind of what he was going with. Uh,
mm. Yeah, it kind of poses the question if there's going to be like a primary lantern in this universe, or are they gonna are there going to be multiple? Are there going to be because we're getting Guy Gardner in the Superman movie, this Lantern series. I'm
we're gonna have
sure
John, and we're gonna have John along with
John
Al.
Hal.
We have three. So when you say Green Lantern, you're not thinking of one guy.
No, you're thinking of the core, the whole core. There's a lot they could do with that if you think about it, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the human lanterns. It, they could do stuff with like Kilowog or um, like what's the little squirrel lantern? Like there's a lot of crazy shit you could do with it. You know, um, you're talking about an intergalactic police force, so there's a lot of characters. It doesn't have to. I'm asking myself, are they going to focus on one for like the for the main for this DC universe, or are they going to go all in and do stuff with the whole core?
I want to read a couple of things that you guys are saying because I saw all the list of names you guys give me, but before I say what I want to say, since his introduction, they've always gone back and forth between Hal and John. That's true. Daniel Ezra for John Stewart. I could see you had a lot of good ones. I wish I could go back and go through all these, but you had a lot of good ones for it.
You know,
Professor.
kind of thinking about this. I don't remember if we talked about this, but one guy I could see as John Stewart is I think Aaron Pierre would be a choice for me.
No, I like that. You have to be
Yeah,
like military. You have to seem like a clear, clean cut guy that is
clean cut,
no nonsense and then really
no
about his
nonsense.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Professor
Hmm.
says, I am happy that John Stewart will be the main Green Lantern in DC. Sorry, chill. Say reports from Comicology, but it hasn't been confirmed by the studio, and that's why I always worry about it. And
Hmm.
this is actually Chill's point right here. It says, you'll see in 20 years why it'll be a waste of resources when the main Green Lantern is Hal again. But it's hard because it's a core. But here's a good point. Just kind of remember, like, Spider-Man. When you talk about Spider-Man, who do you think of? Peter Parker.
Peter
So
Parker. Yeah.
if you waste all your resources and you do Miles Morales, you know, and you say, "Oh, so now Miles Morales is the main Spider-Man."
Mhm.
Eventually, they're going to go back to Peter Parker. So it's hard to share that thing, and I understand it. And I honestly don't know where I sit. I'm talking about the parts. I'm not sure which way I sit with this,
Mhm.
because Chill brings a lot of points that I agree with. He does, and but for me, I didn't even know about Hal Jordan when I first picked up my first comic book. It was all John Stewart. I thought John Stewart was the Green Lantern until I started really diving deep into what was going on. He was
Mhm.
my Green Lantern growing up.
So for me, I started reading Green Lantern when it was Kyle Rayner. That's like when I came in, and then and then roughly around the same time, I found out about John Stewart through the animated series, and then I went even further back, and then that's how I learned about Hal Jordan.
But that's John Stewart just was my guy, But I understand exactly what you're
Oh,
saying, and I like it, but I worry about him being, especially in we just talked about this DC right now. They don't have any other black characters, right? So he's the
mhm,
main black character, and he has to share his mantle with Hal, who's supposed to be the number one.
mhm. Yeah, and I agree. John's easily my favorite Lantern. I think he's just the ideal Lantern.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of like his background and that sort of thing. Like he's like the ideal choice to be recruited into this organization.
But Chill said it's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing. We just lived through 20 years of after Justice League Unlimited.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which I
Uh,
still watch from time to time. By the way, it's
that's why
so
John
good.
would be a better choice. A lot of fans grew up with John. Me, you know. So YouTube said to Chill's point, Jeffrey Thorne, his plan for John Stewart in his run, he wanted John to go beyond a lantern and become something more, which I would love to see.
Mhm.
And he said, Mama Bear fans grew up on Hal starred in animated series and movies. Okay. Hal was the one animated series, but John has been the animated Justice League Unlimited, and a large number of movies. John's story on TV was more fleshed out. Okay. You see how it didn't matter how successful John was, it still went back to Hal. He like we made this point for him. When it's time to call for a Project Green Lantern, went back to Hal. John's big spotlight was when it was called Justice League. Can you argue with that? That's a very good point. That's a
No,
yeah,
absolutely not. Definitely can't argue with that.
and
Oh, I
I
agree.
I agree, and but that's once again why my upsetness with James Gunn was you could have really brought out some characters. We didn't have to lean on one. You could have made
Mhm.
someone who is that title for what we need. We had Static Shock is one of the best storylines, one of the biggest, most highest selling um TV shows, comic books, all that for DC. So why wouldn't you lean on that?
Mhm.
So yeah, I was thinking Garrett Hedlund for
I've
Hal
been I've
because he
said the
did
same thing for a
you,
while.
you did see that. Yeah.
I have said the same thing for a while. I think he would be so good as Hal. He would definitely be my pick. Um, and I even think he's in right, like enough, like a good enough age range for like a Lantern who's been doing this for X amount of years, but still has enough longevity. I think he's only like 39, 40. You
And
know,
that's what you want.
yeah,
That makes
Mhm.
perfect sense. I think that's a good, great age for all this stuff. Um,
Yeah. And you could have a John Stewart who, because we're talking about with John Stewart, well, he was a discharged, like he was a retired Marine. He was an honorably discharged Marine, wasn't he?
yep.
So you'd think someone like a career Marine, potentially around the same age. I was kind of hoping they'd do something like that, especially with them with all the comparisons to True Detective with this. Um, they even have, I think they even like got True Detective writers, didn't they, in the writing
Yes,
room
they
for this?
have,
If I
and
remember,
that's what they say for this series. This Max series is going to be very true detective based.
which I think is awesome because I love True Detective. I think the seasons quality wise have been kind of all over the place, but I will watch as much True Detective
They're still
as they
pretty
make.
good. Is
It's
it?
still pretty good, right?
Derpy
Mm.
says, "I'm with Tank's idea of John Boyega as John Stewart, though."
I don't know.
I
I
feel like
always think
John's gonna have to
he's
be American.
yeah. I think he needs to be American, and I think he needs to. I don't know. John Boyega just looks a little too permanently youthful. I think John needs to have like a little more mature kind of like an older look to him than Boyega.
he,
Much as I like John Boyega,
I don't want this, but what about Aldous Hodge? I don't want this. Don't get me wrong, because I want Aldous Hodge to be Black Panther. I always wanted Black Panther, but but I guess you can't do that anymore because you already let him be Hawkman.
Hawkman, yeah. Well, I'd be good with it because it's Aldous Hodge. He's great in anything. Like I love him in any and everything that I've seen him in. So if they wanted to get him for John Stewart, I'd be totally fine with it, especially if they're disregarding Black Adam and saying it's not part of this rebooted
This
universe.
never happened.
This never happened, right? I'd be fine with it because it's Aldous Hodge. The dude crushes every single role he's in.
Says, I go for
Um,
Eli Gorey.
I'd have to look him up. I'm trying to remember him.
See if I can pull up a picture for you.
Mhm.
Gore. I remember. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
I am
I'm
not
checking.
sure. Let me show you guys. See if I can pull up the right screen because I have like 5 things up right now.
Wait, was he George Foreman?
I thought he was Muhammad Ali, but was he Foreman?
Hmm.
So I mean that got to see a beard, right?
Yeah, I'd have to see something that he's into.
Yeah, that's the same problem I want to have with this one.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I'm sticking. For me, I'm sticking with Aaron Pierre. I think he'd be my choice for Hal, or not Hal John. I'm sorry.
same problem I have. But Damson Idris, I have the same problem. I got to see
Hmm.
you with a beard, man. Like a
Yeah,
real you look so youthful. You look so
yeah.
young.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Especially Damson Idris looks like he's about 18.
Always, no matter
Mm-hmm.
Damson Idris or Aaron Pierre.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing with a beard, I'm not opposed to it. Say those are floating around to maybe be John Stewart. All right, I hear you. Okay.